Chapter 22. The pack is coming. Anger blackened my view, dark and deadly, as I envisioned the wolf pack coming here to kill my wife and my family. Emmett hissed softly, his eyes wheeling toward me. Jasper remained motionless, his eyes locked on Jacob, his mind wary and hate-filled. "What's their problem?" Emmett snapped. "The same one as mine," I hissed. "But they have their own plan to handle it. They did not want the abomination, the mutated killing creature that I had created, to come into this world any more than I did. But my feelings were born out of fear of the destruction it would wreak on Bella. Their purpose could not possibly be more coldly different. They hated it for its very existence, and the unknown threat to their family and lands, and in a perverse twist of fate, were willing to inflict the very same damage on Bella that I feared from the creature itself. They would tear her to shreds. "Get the others," I said. "Call Carlyle." Damn it! Why did this have to happen now, when Carlyle and Esme were away, alone, unprotected? He and Esme have to get back here now. "I'm on it, Edward," thought Emmett, pulling out his phone. Jasper remained frozen and tense. Jacob's mind flooded with uneasiness. "They're separated," he thought. Inside I could hear Bella moving restlessly, covered in IV tubes and monitor wires on the small hospital bed. She coughed, still asleep, heartbeat stumbling weakly. I swallowed hard, feeling the rush from the anger and fury draining out of me, even as I clung to it, leaking slowly from my empty core. It had been a strange high to have that feeling again, that Bella was in danger from an enemy that I knew I could easily destroy, one that I could wrap my hands around, crushing and destroying, until it was decimated and she was safe again. But already the hopelessness, the jagged futility, was returning steadily and overtaking me. For I would gladly save Bella from 1,000 enemies. I would willingly, without hesitation, throw myself in the path of 1,000,000 dangers. But nothing changed the fact that I could not protect her from the danger that was relentlessly taking over her body, right now, behind me, in the very place that I called home. "They aren't far," I said. My voice felt hollow. "I'm gonna go take a look," Seth thought. "Run the western perimeter." That seemed like a foolish risk, letting Seth go out alone. "Will you be in danger, Seth?" I asked. Jacob and Seth exchanged a look. "I don't think so," they both thought. Despite the possible risk, Jacob let him go. He did not want to give orders to Seth. He would need to learn to do this, however, if he wanted to fulfill his new role. This thought caught me up short. Jacob had taken on the role of Alpha, a role I knew he did not want, a role that, despite his birthright, he considered to be against his very nature, and in making this step, in an effort to save Bella and ultimately my family, he had given up everything: home, friends, and family. The price of this sacrifice was breathtaking. I was in awe that someone of his young years had the strength to take such steps in order to do what he knew was right. If I had ever thought that Jacob was capable of such a thing, I would have respected and feared him a great deal more as a romantic rival for Bella. "This isn't the first time I've owed you my gratitude, Jacob," I whispered. "I would never have asked this from you." "Yeah, you would," he thought, thinking of my request from earlier today, that he offered to bear Bella's children at the possible expense of his heart and soul if she still remained with me. He didn't realize that I would never have asked that of him either. My request of him to give himself to Bella, to give her his power to create life, had included my tacit awareness that I would also give Bella to him, permanently, if she changed her mind, and decided that ultimately she did want the human life he could offer. Be honest. Had Bella maybe agreed to have his child, but stay with me, I could not deny that, even given the destruction that might have caused Jacob's life, I would have still asked. Ultimately, there might be nothing I wouldn't accept, wouldn't do, if it led to Bella being saved. "I suppose you're right about that," I murmured. "Well, this isn't the first time that I didn't do it for you." "Right," I said softly. "Sorry I didn't do any good today. I told you she wouldn't listen to me." "I know. I never really believed, and cowardly, I never really hoped she would. But you had to try. I get it. She any better?" His question, and the tentative hope behind it was a cold blow against reality, and it allowed an opening for the thought I had been fighting against, the realization I did not want to allow in, that listening to Bella's body and watching her through Rosalie's eyes inside, I knew she was getting progressively weaker. The IV was not working. "Worse," I whispered.
"Edward, what's happening?"
Alice was standing on the porch, the future blank in her mind. I didn't answer, pinned down as I grappled with the reality that our last chance to halt Bella's slide towards death was proving useless. Irritation flooded Alice's mind.
"Fine,"
she thought.
"Jacob, would you mind switching forms? I want to know what's going on."
I shook my head. "He needs to stay connected to Seth." Her teeth snapped together.
"Well, then would you be so kind as to tell me what's happening?" "Snap out of it and start talking, Edward. I can't see anything and you know it."
"Fine. The pack thinks Bella has become a problem. They foresee potential danger from the creature, monster, from what she's carrying. They feel it's their duty to remove that danger. Jacob and Seth disbanded from the pack to warn us."
"Remove it how?"
Alice thought, hissing as she realized the obvious. Inside, Rosalie's thoughts screamed with hatred and fury.
"I'll kill them,"
she thought. Jasper and Emmett finally shifted their attention from Jacob, scanning the woods. "Where? When? How many, Edward?" Jasper thought in alarm. "Are they close?" His thoughts were on Alice and her vulnerability to the wolves. He fought for her as well as Bella. I shook my head imperceptibly. We would have time to discuss all this inside. "Carlisle and Esme are on their way," Emmett said. 20 minutes, tops." "We should take up defensive positions," Jasper said, anxious to talk to me. "Get the wolves out of here, Edward," he thought. I nodded. "Let's get inside," I said, doubting Jacob would follow. "I'll run the perimeter with Seth," Jacob said. "If I get too far for you to hear my head, listen for my howl." "I will," I said. Alice flew into the house, Jasper and Emmett backing up slowly toward the door. I walked slowly backward to the bottom of the stairs, and then stopped, watching as Jacob ran away, already in silent conversation with Seth. When he had disappeared into the trees, I sprang up the stairs and into the house. The others were clustered close together, just inside the door. Their heads swung toward me as I entered. They were waiting for me, tense and expectant. In Carlisle's absence, and considering this directly involved Bella, my siblings were looking for me to take the lead.
"What the hell, Edward?"
Rosalie screamed in her mind.
"How dare they try to hurt Bella?"
I pressed my fingers against my lips, motioning for them to be quiet. I wanted to make sure Jacob was completely out of earshot before we strategized how we were going to kill his brothers. While I was enormously grateful for what Jacob had done, and the invaluable warning he had provided us, ultimately, this was my fight, our fight. Bella was part of our family now, and we would protect her. Jacob's mind moved swiftly away, leaving the house far behind. As soon as I lowered my finger from my lips, Rosalie was on me.
"Damn you, Edward, and your twisted ideas! Look what you've led us to!" "This isn't Edward's fault, Rosalie,"
Alice hissed.
"There was no way to keep it from Jacob, and then no way to keep it from the pack. Yes, it is his fault. Don't let him weasel out of it."
Rosalie insisted. She glared at me.
"You let that dog into our house, toward your own ends, and look where it's got us. You put what you want over Bella's safety, as always."
Was she insane? She dared to say that to me? "The hell with you, Rosalie," I snarled. My God, I was going to end up killing her along with the wolves.
"Stop it!"
Alice broke in. She looked at me.
"They really want to kill Bella? They would actually kill her?"
"Yes," I said, taking a deep breath, trying to will away Rosalie's existence. "Yes, they are willing to kill her. They consider the unknown factor of what she's carrying enough of a risk to kill it before it ever sees the light of day. And that requires, in their eyes, taking out Bella." "I'll break their necks," snarled Emmett. "Smash them into pieces." "Did you get a good look at the pack's plans?" asked Jasper. "Yes," I hissed. As furious as I had been, my mind had captured each detail of the memories Jacob had shared with me. They are planning to attack tonight, hoping for the element of surprise. Obviously, they have lost that. Sam, Paul, and Jared plan to take out Rosalie and me. Quill and Embry, without Jacob now, will take on Emmett and Jasper. Bradley, Colin, Seth, and Leah were supposed to concentrate on Carlisle, Alice. I paused. And Esme. It was silent for a moment.
What about Bella?
Alice whispered. I felt a rush of bitter anger. Sam's exact words, I believe, I snarled. Or whoever has a clear line on the creature will take it. All right, damn it. Then what's the plan? Said Emmett. Jacob will howl if he hears the approach, and I will hear them, hear their minds coming. We will have a couple miles of notice. My mind was working, resolving, trying to formulate the best plan of action. We will want to meet them in the woods, away from the house. And the best way to kill them? Emmett growled. I glanced at Jasper. His mind had been working through what he knew of the wolves, their strength and weaknesses, this entire time. Well, we never should have let them see our practice fighting, Jasper began slowly, irritated. It gave them too much information about us and our individual strengths. He glanced briefly at Alice, and then looked around carefully at the rest of us. However, even with that advantage, they are really no match for us, especially in a one-on-one or even a two-on-one fight. Damn right, agreed Emmett. I nodded. What Jasper said was true. Despite our anxiety, my family would be able to take down the pack. They are at a disadvantage with more even numbers, I said. They have more of a group mentality. When the wolves come upon a lone, unexpecting vampire, they attack as a pack, bringing him down. As I spoke, I thought of Jacob's memories of killing Laurent. I heard his high screams as the pack overtook him, leaping in an almost graceful unison to tear him down in one violent strike. In more even numbers, they must fight by dodging and distracting, working together if there are two of them, with multiple small attacks. If you are facing two, don't let them play games with you, said Jasper in a hard voice. Incapacitate one, kill the other, and then finish off the second. And don't forget, I whispered, our venom is poisonous to them. Emmett and Rosalie, who knew this, nodded, but Jasper and Alice stared at me in shock. This was information I had gleaned from the mind of Ephraim Black, so many decades ago, when we had first met the wolves, before they had any reason to suspect they must hide their thoughts near me. It was a warning passed down among the Quileutes for generations, a knowledge born through the painful loss of their ancestors, a deadly secret, and one they never would have wanted me to have. Poisonous? Hissed Jasper. Are you sure? I nodded. He contemplated this for a moment, and then his lips flickered up at the edges with satisfaction. Easy, he said with certainty. Easy to kill. I will take Sam, I said. He will be the most powerful, the most determined. Plus, he will be looking for me. And I owed him death. Ultimately, he drove the decision to kill Bella, and he would die for it. Jasper exchanged a look with Emmett. Emmett and I will take the other 4 fighters, Paul, Jared, Quill, and Embry. With pleasure, Emmett growled. You and me, man. He clapped Jasper on the back. Are you sure you two can handle that? I questioned. Emmett snorted, and Jasper gave me a hard look. We can handle twice that, and you know it, Edward, he thought. I nodded. Well, I'll join you after I finish off Sam. I looked around, thinking. Then maybe Alice can take Leah. No, snarled Jasper. I don't want her fighting. Carlisle can take Leah.
I can fight,
snapped Alice. No, you can't, and you won't, growled Jasper. He reached out and grabbed Alice's shoulder. You will have no vision, Alice. You will be blind. Alice shook him off, her small body darting out from under his hand. Her eyes flashed.
I will fight,
she said softly. Jasper's gaze was unrelenting. I will kill Leah, he said in a flat voice. Alice growled. What about the others? Asked Emmett. I thought for a moment about Bradley and Colin, younger even than Seth, and felt a small flicker of doubt. We will definitely need to kill the older, more experienced fighters. Sam, Jared, Paul, Quill, and Embry. I paused for a moment. And Leah as well, I think. She will fight to the death. There are a couple of younger ones, though, just children. I trailed off.
Are you kidding?
Hissed Rosalie.
They are coming here to kill Bella and the baby. They are murderers. Kill them all. I don't care how old they are.
You don't understand the pack mentality, I snapped. Sam is driving this. It's his decision. He'll get them all killed. Jasper sighed. We could avoid using venom on the smaller wolves and just incapacitate them, he suggested, although his thoughts reflected that he felt I was being foolishly soft-hearted. We know from what we saw with Jacob Black, with the newborns, that major broken bones take a while for them to heal. Yes, I said quietly, remembering. We could hurt them enough to take them out, and then Jacob or Seth could return them to the push. You're taking a risk, said Emmett. They may be young, but they're still dangerous. Just try, I muttered. Jacob's mind, moving swiftly away, but still in range, registered alarm, and I froze. Hey, something coming up fast, said Seth. I sniffed, waiting. My family looked at me in alarm. Vampire. Bet it's Carlisle. I relaxed. It must be Carlisle and Esme. I shook my head at my family. We can move Bella up to the 3rd floor when they attack, I said. Remember, Jacob has never been past the 1st floor. It's completely unfamiliar territory to them, and if they do manage to get into the house, the close quarters will definitely be to our advantage. It gives them no space to move, to dodge us.
Just let those fleabags come,
growled Rosalie. They will never get that far, I snarled. I hesitated, and then looked into the eyes of my family. Remember, they want to protect their land and families, but there will be misgivings. Sam is determined in his course, but I saw the conflict in their minds. They do not want to kill Bella, but feel they must. I paused, pulling in a rough breath. Alice reached out and squeezed my hand.
We, on the other hand, all of us, would fight to the death with everything we have to protect Bella,
she said in a firm voice.
That gives us a power, a strength they will not have.
Jasper wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Edward, we're coming. Carlisle's thoughts were approaching swiftly. Carlisle and Esme are close, I whispered.
We should close up the house,
said Alice. She suddenly reached up, pressing the keypad to close the shutters against the back windows, our most vulnerable point. No, I hissed, my eyes on Bella, but it was too late. The metal groaned loudly, and Bella's eyes flew open.
What's going on?
She said, her voice dry and raspy. Our heads turned towards Bella in unison, as the same thought went simultaneously through 5 minds. What are we going to tell Bella? Bella knew almost everyone in the pack, and even considered a couple of them, Quill and Embry, her friends. How could we possibly tell them that these so-called friends were coming here tonight to kill her, to destroy her, and the thing inside her? I met Rose's eyes, and a single thought of rare agreement passed between us.
Not now.
I nodded and moved swiftly to Bella's side, leaning close to her. It's nothing, sweetheart, I soothed. We just don't want the light to wake you up in the morning.
You don't need to do that,
sighed Bella.
Don't go to trouble for me.
My eyes inadvertently met Rosalie's for an instant. She placed a hand on Bella's forehead.
Go to sleep, Bella, she whispered. Go to sleep.
Bella's eyelids fluttered, and she fell back into an uneasy sleep. I waited a moment, and then joined the others by the door. Just a few seconds later, Carlisle and Esme arrived. Carlisle had his arm protectively around Esme as he swung her quickly inside the house, turning and bolting the door behind him. Esme was distraught.
Oh, Edward, I was so upset when I heard.
She glanced at Bella and placed a hand against her chest.
I'm just sick over it.
Shh, whispered Carlisle reassuringly, drawing her into his arms. I have to believe there will be a way to work this out, a way to prevent this. His eyes met mine over Esme's head. Still, just in case, what have you discussed? I quickly ran through our plans. He nodded in agreement, his eyes sad. Is there any chance of stopping Sam? Of trying to work it out? He asked. That's up to Jacob, I said. If he can intercept the pack and try to reason with them, who knows? I'm not counting on it, and I hope he doesn't get himself killed trying. His eyes creased with worry. What about Jacob and Seth? Will they fight against their friends, their family? I sighed. Jacob thinks he can. I turned away, moving over towards Bella. Carlyle came with me and gave her a quick examination, his mind confirming my fear. Not better, not working. He looked up and met my eyes. His face was white and strained, his thoughts desperately disappointed. It doesn't appear that she is absorbing the fluids. I'm going to try feeding her intravenously. He didn't think that would work either. He turned slowly and left to gather the necessary supplies. Alice stepped next to me, looking down at Bella. She reached out and gently picked up Bella's arm with her hands, noting how thin it was, taking in its soft fragility. Alice's eyes raked over Bella's face, so pale and shadowed.
Who would want to kill her?
Alice thought.
Only an inhumane monster would want to hurt her.
Yes, I whispered. Yes, that was right, and there were too many inhumane monsters in Bella's life. Alice's hand slid down Bella's arm, and she paused briefly, holding her wrist. Her fingers rested on the thin, translucent skin that covered the inside of Bella's wrist. The blood rushed through the veins there, liquid heat, and beat hard against Alice's skin. A blast of thirst tore painfully down Alice's throat. She shuddered, and then slowly, deliberately set Bella's arm down. The future was flickering in and out of focus in Alice's mind. She saw portions of time with us in the house, and then large chunks of time missing, interfered somehow by the wolves. Bella, as always, was cloaked in a blurry fog that held no glimpse of hope. Alice turned to me, wrapping her small arms around my waist.
I love her so much,
she thought, burying her head in my chest.
She's so sick. I'm scared.
I began to put my arms around her, when suddenly a wolf howl cut through the night. I stepped back. Go, I hissed, glancing at Jasper and Emmett. They disappeared, moving through the rooms, watching the windows. I quickly went to stand by the front door. Rosalie and Alice stood tense by Bella, ready to move her. Carlyle appeared by her side to disconnect the monitors. He watched me, ready. Not yet, I muttered. I threw my mind out, listening for a wolf mind, friendly or murderous. I cast around the forest, searching, tense. False alarm! False alarm! Jacob thought. I relaxed. Everything's okay, I whispered in a low voice. Seth had howled when he had learned that Jacob had agreed to kill me. Well, I guess there was no hiding it, not among Jacob's small pack. I moved to the dining room window next to Emmett and watched for Jacob. He appeared quickly. There's nothing out there. You got that? I nodded. Suddenly Bella moaned from the other room. I looked back sharply. She's okay, Edward, thought Carlyle. The moan had been low, quiet, and yet layered with the kind of pain that pierced through me. Bella hardly talked in her sleep any more. I wondered what sort of demons haunted her dreams to cause her that kind of pain. Could they be that much worse than her reality? She moaned again, and I shuddered.
She's waking up,
thought Rosalie in alarm. I waved at Jacob in dismissal and moved back to Bella, Emmett behind me. Bella was still asleep, though, when I got to her side. Emmett touched my arm. What the hell was that? It was a false alarm, I said, watching Carlyle change the bag of fluid for a bag of thick white liquid. All in vain, I thought. Seth was upset about something else, and forgot we were listening for a signal. He's very young. Nice to have toddlers guarding the fort, muttered Emmett. They've done us a great service tonight, Emmett, Carlyle said. At great personal sacrifice. Yeah, I know. I'm just jealous. Wish I was out there. The IV began to drip, uselessly, following the course of tubes into Bella's arms. Jacob was still pacing in the front yard. I searched his thoughts for new information. Seth doesn't think Sam will attack now, not with us forewarned and lacking 2 members of the pack. What does Jacob think? Carlyle asked. I read Jacob's response. He's not as optimistic. Bella's breathing was harsh and uneven. Carlyle was checking the IV needle in Bella's hand. He gently removed a long piece of tape.
Don't touch her. You'll wake her up,
Rosalie snapped. Carlyle sighed and straightened up slowly, Bella's hand in his. Rosalie, he said gently.
Don't start with me, Carlyle. We let you have your way earlier, but that's all we're allowing."
Jacob was drawing closer, and the others could hear his approach. The atmosphere was tense, even though they knew he was not a threat. I listened as he rose up and looked into the window, horror-struck at the sight of Bella in the makeshift hospital bed. Bella's body jerked as she choked slightly. I moved in to check her, but Rosalie pressed in ahead of me. She smoothed her hand against Bella's forehead.
"Back off, Edward," she thought. "You've done enough to hurt her today."
My body went rigid. I remembered her accusation, that I was the one who put what I wanted above Bella's safety. I would set her straight about that. But Emmett, reading my expression, appeared quickly in front of me. "Not tonight, Edward," he said in a low voice. "We've got other things to worry about, and the wolf is right outside." I turned away, moving my eyes to meet Jacob's. They were glowing wide in the night, strange, animal eyes that showed a human sort of pain. He thought my eyes were burning, but I couldn't feel it anymore. I looked out from a cold void, a ringing space of hopelessness. Jacob dropped down and ran away, escaping, and I watched for a few moments the spot where he had been. "Jacob's gone now," I muttered, "patrolling the woods."
"Jacob was here?"
Bella whispered. I looked down quickly. She was awake, her eyes wide open.
"Why is he patrolling the woods?"
She looked around at everyone, taking in their strained expressions, Jasper's relentless movements through the house, her eyes finally resting on the back windows, where the silver metal shutters gleamed. She looked back at me.
"What is going on?"
she asked slowly. I glanced for a moment at Rosalie. Her face was irritated, but set.
"Might as well tell her,"
she thought. I hated to do this to her, and hated Sam for forcing this reality on her. I gently took her hand. "Bella, love," I said softly, "the wolf pack is concerned about what you're carrying." Her eyes widened, and she placed a hand on her stomach. "They are worried that it presents a danger. They have decided to intervene." I paused, struggling. "They don't want to allow it to be born." Bella's eyes flashed angrily.
"Oh, they don't, do they?"
she snapped. Then she paused for a moment and stared at me.
"Wait, I don't understand. How can they stop him from being born?"
I watched her carefully as I responded. "They are planning to come here, possibly tonight."
"Come here to do what?"
Bella whispered in a small voice. Realization grew across her face, and her skin paled to snow white.
"To attack us? To attack me? To kill the baby?"
She flailed slightly, trying to sit up, clutching her stomach with one hand. Carlyle grasped her wrist, worried about the IV, secured only with a couple of pieces of tape now. I put my hands against her shoulders, trying to gently press her down.
"How do you know this?"
she said, pausing suddenly.
"What about Jake?"
"Jake left his pack in order to come and warn us," I said quietly. "He's here, with Seth too, watching the woods." Bella's eyes grew wide with a new horror.
"Left his pack?"
she choked out.
"And Seth too? Can Jake stop them? Send them back?"
"I hope so, Bella," I murmured. "Bella, you are safe," said Jasper. He had drawn near, sensing intense fear and despair from her. Her emotions were strong and laced his thoughts with anxiety. Emmett drew up next to him, as if they could comfort Bella with a show of their physical presence. "We will protect you," Jasper said in a low, fervent voice. "We won't let them near you." He stepped closer, reaching to place a hand on her leg, intending to calm her. Bella looked wildly around, and adrenaline shot through her.
"I'm placing everyone in danger," she cried. "My baby is in danger. I've got to get out of here."
She jerked wildly, and Carlyle, afraid of hurting her, let go of her arm. It swung around, and the IV needle ripped out, tearing her skin slightly. Blood, fresh and warm, sprayed over Carlyle. The flames of thirst tore through the room like an angry fire fueled by a burst of oxygen. It traveled through each mind, searing into mine in multiple bursts. Jasper let out a wild hiss, and I whirled towards him, half blinded, but he was already moving away, lurching his body violently backwards, and then throwing himself up the stairs, escaping the only thought in his mind. Alice followed quickly behind him. Emmett, however, stood 2 feet from Bella, frozen, eyes dark pools of thirst. Rosalie stepped in front of him, placing her hands on his chest. He reached up, slowly circling her wrists with his large hands. For one long moment I thought he was going to throw her off. I heard the thought edge itself into his mind, as he imagined for a moment the taste of Bella's blood, and I steadied myself for the attack. But he just stayed still, holding Rosalie's wrists. I had never meant for Bella to live in such close proximity to my family, not while she was still human. It had been one of the reasons I had encouraged Esme to set up the cottage. My family loved Bella, but they were not meant to live with a human. And now, to have Bella here among them constantly, day after day, all of us thrust upon each other in an intimate way that was not meant to be, unable to leave, unable to hunt. It hurt them, and me, to see that no matter how hard they tried to beat it down, their reactions to the scent that now permeated throughout the house, and it was very dangerous. Death never lingered far from Bella, even among those who loved her. As I watched, Emmett's eyes seemed to warm, a dark golden glow slowly returning. His mind was very still, guarded. "I'm okay," he said, his voice strained. His eyes met mine. "I'm good, Edward." Bella was sitting on the edge of the bed, clutching her arm, pale and shaking. She was watching the spot where Jasper had been. She looked around wildly at Emmett's face, Carlyle's blood-spattered clothes, and my panicked eyes.
"Oh no,"
she cried, and burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. "Oh, Bella," I whispered, trying to wrap my arms around her, but she threw me off.
"How can this be happening?"
she sobbed.
"I'm putting our family in danger. Everyone is fighting because of me. I've ruined Jacob and Seth's lives."
She shook violently as she cried, her heart racing. Carlyle, Rosalie, and I exchanged concerned looks. "Bella, we all love you," I said. "Jacob and Seth love you. What they did it willingly, and it very well may have saved us all. We are not in danger. Nothing will ever touch you, and we will all be fine." Bella shook her head, hands still over her face.
"No,"
she moaned.
"I don't want anyone to die for me."
I knelt down in front of her, trying to gently pry her hands from her face. "Bella, no one is going to die." She lifted her head then. Her face was mottled, tear-stricken.
"But you will kill the wolf pack,"
she sobbed.
"I don't want them to die either."
I felt my throat close with pain and frustration, and I fought to keep my face from betraying my emotions. I encircled her in my arms again, and this time she relaxed against me. But I felt cold and stiff. She worried for the lives of the wolf pack, for the very monsters that came here to tear the life from her. Why did she value the life of so many except her own? Her precious life, the cherished focal point of my existence, the life I would see them all dead for to save, she threw away. I had no words to tell her what her life meant to me. I could only hold her tight in my arms. Tears poured out of her as she slowly weakened, slumping her body against mine. It was as if the sorrow represented the last of her strength, listlessly draining out of her. I lay her gently against the bed, and Carlyle quickly fixed the IV, securing it firmly with several pieces of tape, while she watched him with large, blank eyes. Eventually, Bella fell into an uneasy, broken sleep. I stood by her side, her hand in mine, as the hours drifted by. I watched Bella as her body twitched, and she whimpered and cried in her sleep. I listened to Carlyle as his thoughts grew more and more desolate, as Bella showed no improvement. I heard my family, pacing anxiously, stopping to stare out of windows and listen to the forest. No one approached. I could hear neither mind nor body near us. As dawn began to break, it started to seem that they were not coming. We were alone, and yet I was not comforted. The silent emptiness was a vortex, spinning, gaining strength, and pulling us all in. Then a wolf howl pierced through the still, silent morning air,